I'm drinking like you drinking, so whatever you say, I'm ready to.
Man, listen, we are live. We are live, but I mean,
No.
I'm trying to think, like, what would even, alright.
Yeah.
Niggas
All right.
just,
All right
man,
then.
what's up with y'all, man? So what's up as I come in the building? It's the chopper. We back.
So,
Talk nice to me.
We back. Starting lineup is in the building.
We out here. You feel me, man?
what's up?
Cold world, no blanket.
I ain't hating, but I ain't finna let you sit on here and in the context that you saying it in. I'm not with it.
I ain't going back and forth with you,
Apparently, I graduated from grad school this day 7 years ago.
Man, 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
Man, you almost a decade out of grad school.
Bro, I'm almost 15 years out of high school. That's what's crazy. They sent the little message out talking about what y'all trying to do, and I'm like, what you mean? What? What's up, y'all? Ninja Tyler.
Hey, what's up with the boy?
Huh?
You went to Central, right?
I went to Central.
Hell no. Toya went to Lincoln. Yeah.
Lincoln.
What?
I don't know how I
Yeah.
did that, but yeah.
I mean, I took it like I took it as disrespect because you're so close. It's almost like you grew up in the city with some niggas. You just don't.
Yeah.
I would say the first thing.
But you would think it sound like he taking shots. You feel me? It sound like he taking shots. But y'all say what's up, man. We got Ethereal Beauty in the building, Jamar in the building.
Jamar about to graduate in 2 weeks. What's up? Congratulations early. We'll give them to you again when you actually get that thing.
Right.
The end is in sight.
What's up,
Right.
Nico?
We have a very interesting conversation planned for y'all tonight.
Free Palestine.
You know what I'm saying? This may fuck up the monetization, but fuck it. Like shit.
That's the crazy part about having the conversation is how you know that's how you know some deep shit going on. You feel me? Because we already know the implications of the conversation we're trying to have.
Mm-hmm.
We already know how really insulated, you know what I'm saying, the conversation is protected to make it where we can't really be critical. You feel me?
Yeah.
So shit, man.
What's good to Jaleesa? Noel, what's good? I'm back in the building, back with y'all. Happy to be back connected with the people.
Starting five. Yeah.
Vance, what's up? We three, but we move like a starting five. We're gonna defend.
You know what I'm saying?
We're gonna move the ball around. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna score too, so don't worry about it.
We'll give it just a second. We gotta have this mass conversation, a quick one. Cause who knows what the fuck is going on? Like literally. You know what I'm saying? Like literally. And then we gotta point out some creeps. We gotta call out some creeps. Like we be talking shit about, you know what I'm saying, where niggas be fucking up, but you best believe it's the creeps in Congress. And we got a political vibe check, you know what I'm saying, in the political chop tonight. So y'all, we about to get it in.
How crazy it is, man. I went TikTok live and my live caption was just the word Palestine. When I tell y'all TikTok right now is playing games, we're making my shit accessible for my followers to be able to tap in.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, you know what I'm saying? Like free Palestine for real, man. Like
still. Was it 2 people here, 10 people here? Shout out to Kayla. You know what we on. You know what I'm saying? So definitely raising awareness and continuing the conversation. That's the least we could do. And then also, what's up, Dwayne? Shout out to you. But we in the building.
Yeah. So actually, because it's some shit I want to touch on as we get into that conversation, because it's conversations that we didn't have on the chop up about issues like Zionism, accusations of anti-Semitism. So actually, I'm ready to go ahead and get it started so we can get it in for the peoples. Y'all know who's talking about bringing it in? So you know you do it wonderfully.
Y to the T.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna start the show the way we always start the show. Y'all know how it go.
Me, my guys, we really live. Lord, forgive me, pay my tithes. Please don't have me reach inside. And that's in the console. Keep the semi when I ride. Let off Henny when I drive. In the city, we gon' slide. Bet I be there pronto.
What's going on? What's really good? What's going down? It's another Monday night, and this is the Chop Up Show. This is your girl Toya G. Happy to be back with y'all. You know, spent some time away, was with the family, doing all those things in the town. So, you know, I had to disconnect real quick, but I know my people's held it down. I know I Speak came on and handled some business as well. So shout out to Anthony for pulling up and pulling through. But I'm happy to be back with y'all. What's good? Y'all know who I'm with. Actually, y'all go ahead and tell them who I got.
Yeah, man. George Lee, aka Conscious Lee. Don't forget the Lee. GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com. You know what it said, man. We got some merch up there for you. And if you got any inquiries on booking, holla at me.
Y'all know what's up. It's the Political Plug. Damo. Y'all make sure y'all follow me on all social media at the Political Plug. But yeah, let's get it. I've missed Toya. I always miss Toya.
Hey, it's good to be back with y'all. Definitely, Christopher. Thank you for pulling up on time. As always, we stay connected. Shout out to that's my sneakers fan right there. Tapped in and finally got a dub on the sneakers app. It's a rare instance these days. So shout out to you with that. Noel asked a question real quick before we get into it. Who's the artist on the intro? Damo, go ahead and spit all the information they need to know about who dropped our info. Who's that?
Hey, that is my boy Ben Kenobi. You can find him on Spotify. Ben Kenobi. That's off of the project Return of the Jedi on Spotify. So if y'all look up Ben Kenobi, he got this black mask. You'll see him on Spotify, iTunes, all of that. Y'all can go check out that whole project.
Nice
and his more recent project as well. So y'all check that out.
Ben Kenobi. Kenobi spelled Kenobe. Kenobi. Y'all go check that out. Nico, definitely got love for you. Dwayne, you know what it is. What's good? Khadijah, I seen you up in there. Let's go ahead and jump into our Snapchat real quick. Yep. I want to get into the CDC's failures, right? At this point, I want to talk about it because I'm tired, right? Because they just came out with some news that's very confusing, right? And I want to also put some stuff on the timeline of how I feel like the CDC been messing up, and I probably messed up a week ago. So last week they released a statement saying that individuals who have been vaccinated can now go without masks outdoor and now indoor with moderate to small crowds. The only places they are expected to wear masks now, and even social distance, because they can also move without social distancing, is in places of public transportation, airplanes, places like that, and also medical facilities and things like that, right? So those are the places they can kind of go about freely, and those are the places where they have to have masks. So interesting, because just a month or two ago, as things came out, Damo pointed out to me that they made this big grandiose statement about people still needing to wear masks even when they're vaccinated. Why? Because you can still catch and carry the virus and spread it to people who are immunocompromised or who have not been vaccinated. So that's its own interesting things, but that's not all, right? I want to back train and get my load, because we've gone through, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. They said, and I know we don't mess with Dr. Seuss no more. That's a different conversation.
Right. Knick-knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone. But go ahead.
Put a pin in that. But we've gone through one mask, two masks with the CDC, right? So at first they said one mask, and y'all remember it was like, wait a minute, put two of them on just to be on the safe side. This is the best way to secure yourself against sprays and aerosols and stuff. Y'all remember that?
Definitely remember that.
But that's not all. We went through 6 feet, right? 6 feet. Then y'all, they were like, well, we don't know. I don't know if y'all saw this, but it was rumblings where they put on the website and took it back off something about 9 feet. Then they jumped down and said the children can go to school and they can be 3 feet apart. Y'all remember that?
Yes.
Okay. So then they were like, okay, there was a lot of confusion about whether you can wear masks indoors, outdoors. That's always been very concerning. What 6 feet is, I don't know about y'all, but even in terms of the CDC requirements, when I go to different establishments, 6 feet look different at 7-Eleven. It look different at the grocery store. It look different at Ross. The 6 feet look different everywhere I go. It's a different 6 feet that everybody's working off of.
This shit ain't no 6 feet.
Just nonsense. I don't know what the hell the CDC is doing. So what, as people who, because I think all of us vaccinated?
I am not. I'm working on it.
I'm vaccinated.
What you say? Two to three of us is vaccinated. People, it's a process. It's a lot of things going on in terms of the rates of vaccination in this country. That's a whole separate conversation of itself. But we are vaccination minded. That being said, how do you interpret the announcement that they made? Like, what was y'all's first response as vaccinated people to the announcement that you could go and kind of move around, or people who desire it without a mask?
I thought the first thing is just like, well, capitalism is such a hell of a drug. It even has the influence on our public health, where we can't even have adequate public health because the market and the economy is obviously keen over our people's health. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, hey, CDC, y'all full of shit be flushed down toilets. And I'm gonna remember this for the rest of my life.
It's confusion.
And I mean, to be honest, I mean, I kind of pay attention to some things that Fauci says, but at the same time, like, really, is I just keep it common sense worthy. Like, don't be close to motherfuckers like that. Wear a mask, wear appropriate, wear a clean mask, wash your hands. You know what I'm saying? Follow the proper hygienic shit. And regardless, vaccinated or not, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it's again, still, it's like we got to understand that a lot of what the CDC puts out is, like, as George saying, is political, right? Like, you don't want to be known as the people who, fucked up the economy because you was, too scared of COVID. I mean, you even out here in California, they talking about recalling Governor Newsom,
right?
Because of his how restrictive he's been on allowing businesses to operate due to COVID restrictions. So, I mean, the CDC is just another. I hate to jump out that window, but it's the CDC. It's a government, you know what I'm saying, institution. They say shit that they supposed to say, you know what I'm saying, for the reasons that they say it. I'm not like anti-vaxxer or none of that type of shit.
Exactly.
But you just end up taking a lot of this shit with a grain of salt, and the guidelines and everything else. Anything that sounds like common sense, I'm gonna fuck with. Everything else, whatever. Y'all could debate about that. Not y'all per se, I fuck with y'all. But.
I mean, and I'm gonna get to y'all's path and plans moving forward and kind of how you gauge that. But I think, it sucks because I think with all of these failures, not only is it being omitted, like that the CDC is continually and consistently just kind of kiboshing this. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, like, in some institutions in the government, you should be harmless. Like, as much as we know the government is the government, when I look at the CDC, right, and I guess I'm just like, you wouldn't, you in place, you on point, you know what's going on, you not political, you're not really not seeing the politicization of it and seeing the kiboshing and the grandiose messing up and the failures of this institution or that organization.
Yeah.
Is mind blowing to me, because it is a constant reminder that you can't trust the state. There is no trust in the system. You really already have to govern yourself. And it's a sad, I guess it's sad on my behalf that I left those little windows, those little cleavages open of security in the government, because the government sucks, in a lot of ways, and how they support its people. But I don't know why I'm so surprised that the CDC just jacked this up as bad as they did. Like, it's really mind blowing.
Well, before George chime in, I do want to say that ultimately, though, I think that's one of the things that you have to. It was a question of like emergency, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so we end up listening to certain people out of, survivability. Like, I'm trying to at least let me hear what's fucking being said. But as you move through like the panic and then shit kind of start to settle and we start to see how things are playing out, then that's when we start making the rational decision of like, nah, yeah, y'all on some bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt because it's in my best interest to. Because it's in your fucking best interest to provide. We can go as far as left as to say that they're trying to wipe out the population. But, a common sense conversation is like, shit, the least they trying to do is make sure that this shit don't get worse. Like, but ultimately, when bigger factors like people pushing business and people pushing the economy start to weigh on what information gets put out and what's being distributed and what's considered the guideline and what's considered acceptable and not, that's when you gotta be able to easily step away.
Yeah, that's how I said it in the comments. CDC offers guidelines, frameworks. Government implements policy. So ultimately, governments will influence the guidance. And it's just, you see where our government's interests are, where their intentions are, where their kind of desires are, and that's to open everything up and get everybody to, I think to fuel a lot of these underlying political conversations and issues that we already have, because you see a lot of different governors took this as a green light to run even further with their, dissent from the federal government, with their dissent from Joe Biden, with their disregard for just to kind of make sure that it's clear that they run their states and control what they're doing. And so it really sucks that this ends up being another tool of political grandstanding that people are also using to get away with stuff. Comments is rolling in. Christopher says 6 feet and 7-Eleven is the same thing as when our people say, I'm praying for you. That was the prayer. As long as we ain't touching the 7-Eleven, that's roughly 6 feet. Same thing in the airport.
Actually, that's a good analysis too.
Honestly, like that was a great connection. And in the airport, I took a trip and went back home. My first time in the 6 feet don't exist in no airports. None that I've seen. That rule and that understanding, and you would think that's the most important place because people coming from a bunch of different places, international, national, mixing of a whole bunch of things, that you would want to be stringent about that. They don't care nothing about that inside no LAX, inside no Long Beach Airport, inside no Denver International Airport, inside of KCI. They don't care about that anywhere. So just so y'all know, it's another place you ain't safe from the 6 feet. Kayla said, I think that's why it spread so fast. People not practicing basic hygiene is the number one cause pre-pandemic too. And that's why masks are also around to stay, y'all. Like I think I read a tweet or heard a news report about, no, I was listening to an NPR radio report that talks about people who live that work on the front lines, like that work in retail and work in food service or whatever. And they say around this amount of time, they've been sick 6-7 times this year with different colds and tonsillitis and whatever communicable diseases that you have to offer. And they out here living good. They was like, we ain't been sick yet. And so I look at it the same way. I work in an educational environment where who knows what the hell, you binge drunk and don't wash your hands and ain't took a shower and you just here to show up for your credit and your attendance grade. I need you to keep them cooties over there. And if I got to wear a mask to keep that space solid, I'm kind of okay with that. Let's see. So would you, and Tata says, or Chagra, my bad, says, so would you assess that the multi-tiered approach worked, i.e. mask, distancing, and hygiene? What do y'all think? Do y'all think what the CDC kind of put in place in terms of the 3-pronged approach was successful or not?
Again, we talking common sense.
I think it was partially successful.
Yeah.
I think
go ahead, George.
A lot of hospitals now have a much lower people that have coronavirus that's on their campus. We see a lot less deaths, in many different instances than we were seeing. And you feel me? I see it getting better. You feel me? And you know what I mean? But I feel like the getting better don't mean that it's solved. Like,
and that's what I mean. Here's where we use some of our language that we see both in mathematics, but we also see in policy conversations. And is it correlation or is it causation? Right? Did these things kind of correlate with each other? Right, because you have a population where a lot of people got sick, a lot of people died, a lot of people have antibodies. I think Etheria Beauty say I already had it maybe earlier in the year or whatever, so I got the antibodies going, so I don't really plan on getting vaccinated. I'm not anti-vax. If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's completely your right, your business. I sacrificed myself and gave myself a vote to contribute to herd immunity, so you don't got to go through nothing, right? I look at it like that. So when it's all said and done, like I dig it, but are we looking at a causal relationship between masks and stuff like that? Are we looking at things like antibodies and looking at some people who did get immunized and so like there are other things that contribute.
I think we're looking at. I think we're looking at there was a level of hygiene that was just collectively heightened.
Yeah,
that's what it was ultimately. Yeah.
Wash your hands.
People started washing their fucking hands. People started having hand sanitizer. People stopped sneezing the ugly sneeze outwards. People stopped doing that shit. Because like you sneeze, like niggas sneeze in public if you want to. You fuck around and get lynched. You know what I'm saying? And so those types of common sense things associated with cleanliness and hygiene is really what the CDC recommended in that 3-tier approach type shit. Because for example, my granny, my great grandmother, when I was growing up, she always like the mask that we wear, like that we wore during COVID. She wore one of those every day because she had asthma. You know what I'm saying? She couldn't like shit when it came to the air outside or whatever. She couldn't just get shit like, you know what I mean, like everybody else. So she stayed like having to protect her face from from germs, particles outside, etc. And so us being like, okay, well shit, it's the possibility that motherfuckers around us could be sick. So let me do more. You know what I'm saying? Like that. And that's what the CDC.
And
you said what?
CDC. I was just saying, and pay more attention to what's going on. Like I look at it, Vance is kind of dropping some comments. Masks are literally just the large particle droplets that may contain virus or bacteria. That's the deterrent. Touch is always the top spreader of germs. He continued by saying, masks don't actually stop a virus or bacteria from getting you sick. Your hygiene habits will ultimately keep you healthy. And I agree. Like, I mean, I consider myself to be pretty solid hygienely, and also doing things to intentionally contribute to my immune system. But like even stuff like touching handrails and banisters and touching, like I would go upstairs and be like, do you need that? Do you need that? Can you just like, is it possible that you don't reach out and grab something, or you fiddle with or touch, or you might adjust something? Just like, and I think that has also changed a lot of things because you really don't pay attention to how you reach up and scratch your eye real quick, or how you flip your nose real quick, or whatever, or how you put something on your lips. You don't really the amount of touching that we do is something that my senses were heightened to, and if it took a real lullaby to get there, or a song, or whatever the hell we singing, whatever they had us singing in them first couple months, 60 seconds, 20 seconds worth of songs to get people to wash their hands, and so be it.
Oh, well, I was happy birthday to you. That was me. I was that nigga.
Because who do you think? I want to know this from y'all though, because with this decision to take off masks, we only talking about the vaccinated versus the unvaxxed, right, or unvaccinated, and who this affects. But there's a lot of people being left out of the conversation when we make big sweeping decisions like taking off our masks just in case we vaccinated, or if we're vaccinated, or whatever. So who do y'all think gains to lose the most if people start recklessly doing what we probably know they're going to do, which is going around not being vaccinated and just taking off their mask, or even vaccinated people just walking around with no mask on? Who do you think serves to lose the most?
The people that already compromised immune systems, people with lupus, people with, you know what I'm saying, like people with all type of pre-existing conditions.
Any type of immunodeficiency diseases, like the people, like, I mean, really.
Or simply how Depot said it, kids and old folks. Those usually, you know what I'm saying, kids, old folks, and everybody in between with pre-existing conditions that make it where they, you know what I'm saying, immune system is already compromised a bit.
Yeah, right. I mean, and which is pretty much the people that been taking L's. But I like, ultimately though, I think, and this is a lot of the conversation, and I'll let you cap it off to you after I say this. This is a lot of the conversation that we was having about, Congress people and politicians literally saying like, hey, we just gotta sacrifice some people to get this shit back going again. Some people gonna die.
They find real politically correct ways to say that. They, hate political correctness, but they will find very politically correct ways to say some people just gotta die. We just gotta sacrifice some people in order to move on. That's just what it is.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, I'm gonna point out a population of people that we're not thinking about when we have this conversation. I was reading some articles and collecting some information just about the CDC's failure. And here's who we're not thinking about when we come up with mask mandates that allow people who are vaccinated, and they're not stopping people asking for cards, by the way, but people who have self-vaccinated or declared themselves vaccinated and who are now going to take off the mask. The people we don't think about are retail workers, and I'll tell you why. There are still businesses and business policies, just like they were earlier in the pandemic, that got into a lot of friction because they had different mask mandates and expectations for their businesses than maybe what the state was saying at that particular time, or what the CDC was saying at that particular time. So when you have these types of irregularities and these types of rash decisions, you make those people the police. You make them the mass police. You put them in a position to be vulnerable to not only just catching coronavirus or taking something back to their families, but now they are more likely to get in confrontations with people who come into their businesses, because if their business wants you to still wear a mask, even though everybody else says you don't have to wear a mask, now they have to sit there and try to enforce you wearing a mask, even though society said you don't have to wear a mask anymore. So now these people are vulnerable to being berated, to being attacked, to becoming in conflict, and that's all because they're just trying to line up with what their business's policies say they have to do. So this is have different conversations. When the plug talks about people who have been deemed dispensable, we look again at the frontline workers, the people who serve our communities the most, that end up being forgotten about because they're the ones who have to enforce what Chile say about a mask policy and what TJ Maxx say about a mask policy.
Goddamn Walmart and shit.
Crazy.
And you listen. And the last thing you want to deal with is motherfucking TJ Maxx shoppers, Marshall shoppers.
You know what I'm saying? Turn it up on you. And you know they're going to do it in Huntington Beach. Kevin said it best. Essential means disposable. My last question on the way out, y'all answered this. Well, actually, y'all kind of answered this question before. So I'll recap what y'all said. My last question was going to be, where do you get your reliable COVID news, or are you just kind of winging it? And I think both of y'all in different ways have said things have been so reliable and inconsistent. Everybody's just making the best decisions they can.
I'm winging it like a motherfucker.
You know what I'm saying? Like Dominique is going with common sense, with what logically makes sense, with keeping away from people and wearing masks and stuff like that.
Being clean, goddamn it.
Just saying, you know what I'm saying? It's obvious what been working. It's obvious what intuitively makes sense. So we got to just kind of keep on rocking with it. But the inconsistencies of the CDC. I wonder, and I leave you all with this question. You know, if maybe you all already didn't trust the CDC, right? We already got some friction with organizations like the FDA and what they approve and don't approve, and these, that, and the other, and what they say is real meat and real food and stuff like that. So that's a whole different rabbit hole. But we look at the CDC, I really wonder if their reputation is tarnished forever. Because for me, it's hard to believe anything they say. It's hard to trust anything the CDC says CDC says in the future. So if another pandemic hits, if another outbreak comes, if they start putting anthrax back in rotation, I don't really know if I'm gonna trust what they're saying to do, because they really just fumble everything with the demi. And so I'm in the panini trying to figure out what's good, but I know what I am gonna do. As for me in this house, as for me in my house, we shall, we've got to wear a mask. And after that, on that, I'm sliding out of this. Who got it up next?
Yeah. Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, man. So in the past few days, today's the 17th. Yeah, the past couple of days that you've been living under the rock, you've been hearing about the what people call the Israel-Palestine conflict. But I feel like I'm going to be critical of even that very, you know what I'm saying, title of conflict. Because I feel like when I was in debate, I learned the difference between a conflict and an antagonism. And the conflict means we can have a compromise. And antagonism means me or you. And right now it seems like it's definitely me or you when it comes to the people in Palestine versus the people in Israel. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. I was trying to give me something good. This comes from the Washington Post. Says that Israel and Hamas battled into the second week Monday as mountain aerial assaults drove the reported death toll to Gaza past 200. And diplomats said the hamstrung international efforts to secure a ceasefire still ain't happening right now. Diplomats said hopes for progress over the weekend were dashed by large attacks by both sides, including Israeli bombard on Sunday that killed at least 42 people in the Hamas rocket fire in Tel Aviv and other Israeli cities. Pretty much we know that there's been over 200 people that have been killed in this, you know what I'm saying, atrocity that has transpired since last Monday. And my first question to y'all is, what do you think is America's responsibility in this violence that's going on in the Gaza Strip, seeing that America sends billions of dollars to Israel for funds and billions of dollars in guns?
I mean, I'm gonna keep it a buck. Like, you asking me about what I think America's role is, well, as an imperialist, you know what I'm saying, nation. I mean, I think they doing what they do, and that's finding some way to manipulate, profit, and benefit from it. I mean, ultimately, what stands out the most to me is just like the death of children that we dealing with. And when you have like Biden just making phone calls with Netanyahu, like, bruh, kids are dying, bro. Kids are dying. In any other circumstance, especially if this was like a, you know what I'm saying, like really like black people, if this was some shit happening in Africa, or if some white kids die somewhere in Europe, there wouldn't be a phone call trying to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, what this is America's role is to toe the line, right? Play the political game. Do it like again. You're making phone calls with Benjamin Netanyahu is one of internationally is known as one of the most crooked politicians.
Crooked, corrupt.
Like really, it is the fascist stronghold, the military stronghold that Netanyahu and his folks, the people around him, that they have on the government that keeps him in power. But the people have tried to oust this dude multiple times. Multiple times. And yet we treat Kim Jong what's his name? Kim Jong is ill. Kim Jong. I be getting the son father name because they all Kim Jongs. But we treat the Kim Jongs like, nah, y'all treat y'all people like shit. So, but here we go. Netanyahu himself is still deserving of a phone call. Like, let's be for real here. America doing exactly what the fuck they supposed to do, and that is maintain what's best for them. What can they get out of the situation? Joe Biden ain't did shit to to reverse how Donald Trump moved the United States embassy to fucking Jerusalem. He ain't did shit about that. He ain't changed the relationship, that extreme pro-Israel conservative relationship that was established under the Trump administration. He ain't did nothing to challenge that shit. So while we are seeing the images of rubble, children dying, people dying, and the best we can get from Joe Biden is a phone call, and you ask me about what is America's role, we see it. Playing the game.
Enabling. Accessory to crime.
I mean, when you say enabling, that's the thing that I think is the worst, because I don't know if y'all have looked at Israel's Twitter. I don't know if you have, but they posted one of the most antagonistic tweets, y'all, that y'all gotta see. So y'all go get on Twitter and look at Israel's Twitter. They have a bunch of rockets, right? So in the face of a phone call from the United States, Israel has posted just a gang of rockets. And when I say rockets, right, it's just like tweets of just rockets. I'm trying to pull it up so I can pull it up on screen. Yeah. But at the end of it, it says, one of the tweets in the thread way at the bottom. And of course, to me, this is political theater at its finest, because of course those rockets are seen as and perceived as threats. Now, later on in the thread, it says, now this is how many rockets have been sent from Palestinians to Israeli civilians, which, sure, right? Haven't done the research, haven't counted up those amounts of rockets, but this is kind of the sensationalization that they get to fall into. These are the political theater games we play, where now, just like petty individuals, not only do we have these little pity pat phone calls and stuff like that, but now this shit is playing out over social media because world leaders are not world leading, right? And so to me, it's troubling, because I feel like a lot of what the United States did in making the phone call, Joe Biden placing the phone call, is political posturing, because the money still went where it went, right? I think, what was it, $135 million, where we can't pay essential workers, we can't increase a minimum wage, we can't. Y'all see them rockets? Shit's wild.
They really being like, it's really like y'all it's almost just like y'all taunting y'all ops.
And then to clean it up, they posted, like I said, this is how many rockets, but you know what you was doing when you posted them, when you posted these rockets. It's all a game. It's all.
They said this how many rockets been sent our way.
And I think what's troubling is we can't be surprised. And it's these times where we bite our words, where it's so embarrassing to say who we voted for, where it's so embarrassing to say that a lot of people were right. Not necessarily that people should have voted for Donald Trump or should have been politically complacent, but that we weren't going to get anything new or different with the votes that we cast for Joe Biden. And as a matter of fact, it is more insulting, because you want to be a champion of domestic human rights issues, but you support and finance international human rights issues and do it in our face. You playing in my face. And so it's frustrating in that regard. It's really wild.
Hey, and Damo, is there a way for us to put a quotation marks on the conflict when it come up, or when it say at the bottom of the ticker, say Palestine and Israel conflict is a conflict?
Yeah, I can put I can put quotations.
At this point, it's just like, to this point, I think that language is important. And I think that for us to be able to call it a conflict, I really do believe that it kind of devalues the lives that are lost, and I think that it really takes away from it not being an even playing field. Because to me, a conflict means that we can come to a compromise, and it means there's some type of level playing field. And I just think that when you have one of the top military, like top world's military, you feel me, training and resources going against people in goddamn sweats, it's like, I don't think that's a conflict.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, and it's weird, because as somebody who watches a lot of Fox News, you see the most pro-Israel commercials, like literally sending money to support Israel, and all, you know what I mean? So we already see a political relationship already off break. And y'all fucking, I mean, and again, we got to remember, the black relationship with conservatism has nothing to do with the Democrat versus liberal battle, but the ideological battle of where blackness fits in the political conservative ideology. Mm-hmm. So when you see that relationship already, niggas is already suspect. Like, what is it about Israel that got conservatives in America? They already not even globalists, right? The same people that watch Fox News, because think about it, a lot of who you hear criticizing Zionism is white nationalists. Facts. White nationalism is a huge base for conservatism. Whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Contradiction. Those are conservative contradictions.
Right. I was about to, you know what I'm saying? But here we are. But this is the problem that we run into. Y'all remember back when Ilhan Omar was critical of the Israeli lobby, you had motherfucking Nancy Pelosi drawing up a resolution to condemn her on the House floor. This is Democrats.
Yep.
I just really believe, like, when I feel like when it comes to the idea of humanity versus comfort, I believe that Israeli comfort is always already held to higher extent, hold more weight than, you know what I'm saying, Palestinian humanity. I think that if we could think about, like, literally we had people in America ready to say you can't talk no more because you was giving too much support to Palestine. Don't hit them with the Rashid. I support a ceasefire, but Israel has the right to defend themselves. It's like, what the hell going on? And from my perspective, it's like, listen, even if you don't know what is going on in Palestine, even if you don't understand that, if you don't understand what we call the conflict, if you don't understand the occupation, if you understand in any way, shape, form, fashion the conflict of Native Americans in America being bad in any way, you have to understand what's going down in Palestine is bad.
But I mean, you know, and this is where, though, it gets, the overlaps and it get weird. And this is where you can believe that settler colonialism is bad, but maybe you don't have respect for Islam, right? Because George is in the comments reminding us of Ethereal Beauty too. George says Israel versus Palestinians is more of a religious war, and Ethereal Beauty says we can't have this conversation without calling it what it is. Again, this is truly bigger than what we think it is. And so there are a lot of overlaps, intersections, and like intricacies
1,000
in this conflict that have developed it over time. So you can be over or against one component of the politics, and I'll usurp the notion of religiosity within the political spectrum because of how things have materialized. But you can have issues with it on a settler colonialism level, on an anti-blackness level, but maybe not jive with it on a Hamas level or on a Islam level, right? Because there's a whole lot of issues with, you know, notions of terrorism and Islamic extremism in the ways that needs to be eradicated, all the underlying undertones in that. And I mean, let's not forget that Palestinians, a lot of them are Christians as well. So there's a lot of
That's why I think that terminology, that language
is messy.
Yeah, it becomes difficult, and I think, especially as Black people having these conversations, one thing that the Chop Up has spoken to in the past is the ways in which people have used support for Palestine that Black people display as a way to call Black people anti-Semites. Like, if liberals have found any way to call Black people racist in terms of the most legitimate aspect that they can, outside of reverse racism, which liberals know if they try to use that shit, they get cooked. It's being like, oh, these are that taking that stance is anti-Semitic. Like, we remember when LeBron was dealing with that, you know what I'm saying, some years back. We know that a lot of Black movements were considered anti-Semitic. And again, more recently, what happened with Ilhan Omar and Nancy Pelosi. And so it's crazy how these things are deployed in ways against us as a way to frame, like, this conversation specifically. Like, even George taking the Free Palestine perspective is one that could end up running across social media is like, consciously is anti-Semitic. Right?
I'm against oppression. Shit, I'm against oppression. Oppression of Jews and oppression of Palestinians is bad.
Right. You know what I'm saying? But ultimately, there seems to be no clear, bright line on being critical of the Israeli occupation of Palestine and then just being racist against Jewish people. You know what I'm saying? The Jewish, because being anti-Semitic has more to do with being against the Jewish faith.
Exactly.
Right. Like having a negative relationship towards Judaism. You know what I mean? Like they bring the nationalism into the conversation, and then all of a sudden now you can move in and out of where that criticism lies, right? Because when we're talking about people blowing up synagogues and then people respecting the right for Palestine to exist independently without colonization, you can't say that them things occupied the same, you know what I'm saying, same space and thought. Those perspectives are completely on opposite sides of the spectrum. One is an instance in a display of oppression, right? In the ways in which the people who choose to attack mosques and blow up mosques and violently target people of the Jewish faith, but then being like, these people should be able to have their land and exist the way that they exist without occupation. right? Without being forced to adhere to lines and boundaries that are being forced upon them, that's when we got a problem. You know what I'm saying? And it's intellectually lazy on behalf of the people who make those claims that attempt to say that those are the same things.
I mean, and I think that's what Khadijah kind of has a comment. I think people are using religion to ignore how unjust Israel's actions are. And I think that is where it becomes very easy to kind of scapegoat or undermine or undersell the intensity of it because of the tenets of the faith that you don't want to be guilty of attacking. And that's absolutely, again, what we're not doing. To be clear, throughout this conversation, there are no levels of anti-Semitism stirring from these perspectives that says that the faith or the synagogues or the occupation of those places or people practicing their faith is necessarily bad. But the same way, and there's Christopher's talking about some of the connections we made between settler colonialism in terms of indigenous folks and what's happening in Palestine or in Israel. But the big difference is it's happening on stolen land. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about the people who are not there to advocate, to argue, to even fight and push back for their right to that particular space, right? Things have happened that have created a complete eradication. I saw a map that kind of was like a timeline map that showed 4 different captures of time, like just how much land Palestinians had and how that shit was relinquished over time because of the way that colonialism happened. And those are things that you just kind of got to be obvious, because where you lose land, you lose people, and there's a loss of life. And so we have to be honest about that. And
Palestine used to exist from the sea to the river. And if you see it now in 2021, if you see a map in 1967 of Palestine, it does not look like the map of Palestine in 2021. That is literally colonialism. It's like you can't justify that shit.
The sheer state and marginalization of the Gaza Strip, you know what I'm saying? Like what is left to look like, the shambles that has been left in. I seen a post that broke my heart because it's just literally people, like these people are important to civilizations and societies. They have, I think, lost their only neurologist. He got bombed and his family got bombed. And so literally the only person able to treat neurological issues, which was already an aging doctor on the Strip, whole family was killed, right? And so he no longer has the ability to even attend to the needs of their people in times of warfare. We got the map right here that we were kind of pointing to that looks at the Palestinian loss of land from 1946 to the present. And we see Tel Aviv being connected to being a particular place of interest in that region. Jerusalem is highlighted there, and you see Jerusalem still being at the epicenter of the present photo over onto the right, but the green representing Palestine and how much it represents is just completely gone.
And right? I want to be clear about something too. I feel like growing up, there was always moments where when we learned about history, the same question was always asked: how did it happen? If we are sitting there saying that there are things that we inherently understand to just be wrong today, how did people allow that to happen? What we are watching, what we witnessing now, this was a fact check of MSNBC's Palestinian loss of land map, but it was confirmed to be accurate. All right. So the map does accurately depict the land that has been forcibly taken from Palestinians since 1946, 2 years before Israel was established, and accompanying expulsion between 750,000 and 1 million Palestinians to make way for a Jewish state. That's colonization, people.
That's literally the Trail of Tears.
That's literally. I mean, when we talk about indigenous Americans, when we talk about why indigenous Americans ended up the way that they ended up, the mindset, the mentality, this is it. That shit wasn't no one-off.
Process.
Like it is a systematic process, and really because of the resistance and the history and the culture of the Israeli-Palestinian quote unquote conflict, right? This is one that's always in the news, that we always hear talked about. But when you look throughout history, what the colonizer has been able to do is frame these instances of forcibly taking land as shit like manifest destiny.
Destiny.
As shit like
I feel like you see colonialism always use how Toya put it, religiosity to justify the colonial violence. You feel me? It's always some divine nature that's used. You feel me? In this instance, it's looking like, so y'all think Yahweh agrees with what's happening to the Palestinian people? Show me in the Judaism where they teach, you feel me, what should be going down like this. You feel me? Don't bring me your archaic understandings of this holy war you want to talk about. You know what I'm saying? I think that a lot of that language to me, it used to me is just lazy because to me it glosses over how there are institutions and systems that actualize the violence that's going on to Palestinians.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that when you just characterize just being a mere conflict or religious war, it glosses over all those uniqueness in terms of force and in terms of power. Because it's not it's the UN, the international community is not backing Palestine the way that it backs, you know what I'm saying, Israel. And that's the reason why it's even hard to have these conversations, because we know as Black people that know how to use language, if we speak too much truth to power, it's going to be too much a risk that we get taken out, or we literally get delegitimized, literally our credibility taken away because we did the taboo no, which we not supposed to do, which is be critical of what's going and what's happening to Palestinians.
Very true.
Now, I want to say this though. When we look at what's going on, I think it's important to understand and remember that these things are empowered, right? Like these things are encouraged, right? And the government that we're operating from, that we have to operate under, they've encouraged this. They allow this to happen. But when you look at shit like even more within our recent memory, when we look at what happened with Syria, for example, the fact that the Syrian government were killing Syrian children was one of the main factors as to why the United States was this close to getting involved.
Yeah.
This close. I mean, they was on the edge of it, like, oh, we got to do something. But again, they didn't, because Russia Russia wasn't allowing that. But ultimately, even the posturing towards Syria, you have children dying in this instance. And again, Benjamin Netanyahu is getting phone calls. What the fuck is it to talk about? Like, straight up.
And to Christopher in the comment section, I still going back to what I'm saying. I think it is intellectually lazy to characterize Israeli occupation of Palestine being because Hamas allegedly said something about, if you don't bow down to Allah, then you're gonna do X, Y, and Z. I think that again feeds into the Islamophobic narrative that justifies Palestine being occupied the way it is. To me, that literally feeds into that. Because I know that if we go to 1947, which we just pulled up the map, I don't think we're gonna be able to do a genealogy to say that Hamas justifies all of the force and violence and institutional shit that's happening to Palestinians. So again, I still think it is lazy to try to
because let's be real. A lot of these organizations, the terrorist organizations, are established in response to occupation, right? This is literally like, we want to resist what the fuck is happening, so we establish this like resistance. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
And Toya, before you say what you about to say, Toya, we know that Barack Obama, George Bush, literally all the past presidents have said that Israel has the right to defend itself. The question is then, does Palestine have the right to defend itself then? We know that all of America, when we go with the president, they all say that Israel has the right to defend itself. Now the question has to become, when you want to talk about Hamas or talk about anything going on from Palestine, it's like, hey, do they have the capacity to defend themselves? And if so, what does it look like?
Or what it like under, you know what I'm saying, under what circumstances? I mean, let's not even beg the question. They don't. Because the response of Palestinians defending themselves is considered terrorism.
Yeah,
like that's the response.
Every time. As a matter of fact, when you look at it through a militaristic lens, it's always going to be, if there is any American military that's occupying any force, they are there because they are righteously there being there, and they're also there because they are protecting things and people. So automatically next to it, if you have any criticism or any resistance to American occupation, you automatically seen as what? A terrorist.
A terrorist. Yeah.
And I just know for a fact how America's set up. I know for a fact if anybody y'all do people that's legally in America, that's legally went through the process to immigrate here, y'all treat them like they occupying here, ain't supposed to be there. So I imagine if a foreign power came to the middle of nowhere, Idaho, went to the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, went to the middle of Missouri, and started being like, hey,
y'all don't even want Mexicans to have jobs.
What, y'all want Mexicans to have jobs, let alone imagine somebody trying to occupy your land, telling you how you supposed to live, telling you your culture, telling you your traditions is persona non grata, it don't mean nothing, and you ain't shit. Come on now. What?
Right.
Y'all get, it's just really just, to me, just to hear how the media, because my next question was going to be, what do y'all think about the media's coverage with this? Just, I don't even want to add no extra shit because I don't want to even let my thoughts. Just, what do y'all think of the media's coverage?
Yeah. I was about to say, fix that, dude. Because you just, what do y'all think about the media coverage
of the media's coverage of this atrocity?
I mean, like you said, we live in a very politically pro-Israel state, and so the government, because of the same reasons, we're having to be very careful about, how we talk about these issues in order to remain and maintain our credibility in talking about these and not sound like we are problematic is the same, but even I think to a deeper extent, eggshells that our favorite corporations have to walk on. So what do? They end up falling into the trope and the trap of having to be heavy-handedly pro-Israel and not having any reasonable antagonisms and criticisms of the ways that they treated Palestine. Right. They don't want to seem anti-Semitic, and so they deal with it. We're just a little podcast, so we get to be a little bit more honest about things, but we have to consistently remind people we don't have a bone to pick. Not a bone. I have Jewish friends. I love them all, right? And
it's only clear. Palestinians are Semitic people. Palestinians are Semitic people. Palestinians are Semitic people.
Exactly. Right.
Hey, and I do.
Nico pointed out in the comments and wants us to be reminded of the intersections because they are Jewish Palestinians, right? So let's not get messed up and forget about it. These are not representations that we're going to get from the news. These are not things that we're going to see. We're going to see people who are being hardline and very stringently pro-Israel, largely because they don't want to seem anti-Semitic and they don't want to smoke with somebody who has the ability to pull those things. Not to mention, we'll stop there because I want to stop there. You gotta stop there.
Hold on. Because I do want to highlight our resident moderate of the Chop Nation, King A official. You know what I'm saying? Our moderate liberal. Shout out to King A official in the building. He said, I don't think we should label the terrorist groups as protective groups, though. These people have been caught saying they went to kill all Israelis. So I do want to, you know what I'm saying? I hear you, right, King A, and we definitely want to recognize you because we appreciate your support. Appreciate you showing up. Appreciate you commenting. But here's the problem that we run into. A lot of the comments that we've heard throughout the you good, baby. A lot of the comments that you heard throughout the or not heard but read throughout the show, or specifically this segment, is about Palestinians not having a protective arm for themselves. They don't have a military, right? That's what Hamas represents, right? Like they represent the defensive arm of. I mean, because that's how they looking at it. We are being occupied. Right, and they are a resistance
language. The language that we use to talk about colonized peoples. In America, we called the indigenous peoples that was resisting the colonialism, we called them savages, and we said they were engaging in guerrilla warfare. It's the same tactics that's being used to describe what the Palestinians is doing. All you're using is language that's structured with civility, and you're saying that they are incivil. And because they are incivil, it justifies doing whatever the hell we want to do to them. That's the same exact way that Samuel Adams, the same way that George Washington was able to get away with killing these, like really able to get away with genocide of Native Americans by literally characterizing them as saying, nah, they being terrorists. They scalping us. Yeah. They killing children. Yeah. Like, nah, that's what you doing. Yeah. Projecting. It's called guilt.
Yeah. And so like you just do. And so I definitely feel like, you know what I mean, because of what we know about like Democrats, liberals in America, like, and the weird ethics that they play with, like the weird things that they justify and what they feel like is appropriate versus inappropriate, right? That liberal ethical lens just doesn't fit, right? Like there's no way that we're going to justify like just murdering innocent people. I don't think nobody here is going to, you know what I'm saying, die on that hill. But at the same time, when we're talking about the reason why Hamas exists, Like, why does the Taliban exist? Why does Al Qaeda exist? Hell, I mean, these organizations literally spring from
American imperialism, man. Western, like literally all the groups y'all talking about that y'all want to justify Western powerful.
Yeah.
It comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's wrap this one. Go ahead, wrap this one up, Lee, so we get into this last chop, so we can close this out, bro.
Hey man, in wrapping this up, if you have a heart for humanity, if you have any ethics or morals for human life, there has to be some way for you to recognize and acknowledge what's happening to the people in Palestine, to the children, to the women, to the men. It's devilish. You feel me? It's unethical. It's immoral. You know what I'm saying? It's inhumane. I know that we're supposed to have a whole international realm to make it where we can go and do stuff about humanitarian crisis and humanitarian violations. The fact that we have not been able to see enough humanitarian violations being deployed from UN, specifically when it comes to the humanity of people in Palestine, I think that we all have an issue. And the question is, if there was any time in this conversation that you felt that you wasn't aware of this, y'all know the motto, research over me search. Huey P. Newton said we got to think globally and act locally. It's a reason why it's a lot of academics that wrote about the literally connecting the dots between Black Lives Matter protests and what's going on in Palestine. And lastly, to my Black people that love to ain't do nothing for us and X, Y, and Z, and to you old clout chasing ass conservatives, the Black Lives Matter movement was a global movement. And especially when they talk about Palestinians being in solidarity with what's going on with us Black folks over here in America. It is time to reciprocate that. And when you go do your research, you're going to find the people we look up to, the Malcolm X's of the world. It's a reason why they was already talking about occupation of Palestine.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, this shit ain't new, by the way.
Yeah. This ain't nothing new, man. This ain't nothing new. We can go pull up everybody you never talked about that we ever, from Mahatma Gandhi to goddamn Malcolm X. They always critical about what we talking about right now.
My name is Frederick Speak. Welcome to...
Yeah, we can. Yeah, pure facts. We can go to the next one though.
The only thing I'll add to the conversation before we slide out of there is remember, you know what I'm saying? As we think about the diaspora, as we think about the fact that Africans is literally everywhere, there's some Afro-Palestinians over there. So you know, as you
Afro-Israelis too,
Israelis too, and that's what I'm get knowledgeable. Yeah, because and I definitely want to acknowledge that. Who said that in the comments? I think that was the homie. Who was that? George, who said that reminded us that there are some Afro-Palestinians too. It's people all over there from both sides that we need to be mindful of. So study this conflict. Don't disconnect from it. As Black people, we should be connected and involved into it. I posted a post earlier on the Chop Up Show Instagram that demonstrated the fact that they was in the streets riding for us with us when George Floyd passed away. When the Trayvon Martin incident happened, when all of these things have happened, you know, these people have shown up and made sure that they have protested on our behalf. So when we think about global crises, remember, we do have to think globally and act locally, do what we can closest to ourselves, participate in dialogues and conversations, listen in on discussions that are being had, read that thread, take the time to watch that video, educate yourself. George Lee said it best. Y'all know what he say. Y'all know what I'm finna say. Education is elevation. So if you really want to be on the up and up and really understand your position on this issue, regardless of what it might be, do the work to become more knowledgeable on how these issues have not only begun to transform themselves, but as we have arrived at them today, because the issue is hot. And just last thing, let us not take for granted the fact that we live in a country where as bad as it is and as shady as it is, we're not worried about getting bombed on a day-to-day basis. We don't have the of walking at our front door and worried about whether or not we're going to be shot down. We're not being relegated. At least not in the direct and heavy-handed ways, maybe in the covert and problematic ways, systemic ways, but not in the aggressive ways to the outskirts and the ugly parts of our cities and our states. So we blessed, you know what I'm saying, when it's all done.
And real quick, let me add this too to you.
Yeah.
Black Hebrews are also being expelled from Israel. Like African Hebrews are being expelled from Israel. They're being kicked out completely. So, you know, racism don't really, you know, it don't take days off. Racist and racist.
Colonialism is global. That's what you take from this conversation. Anti-blackness and colonialism is global. The literal disregard, disrespect for indigenous people is global. You feel me? The literal disregard for people of African descent is global. It's not just an American thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what we see. We see that all the world is in cahoots when it comes to taking land from indigenous peoples, and they'll figure out all type of ways. You feel me? Whether it's a holy war or manifest destiny. You know what I'm saying? Right. Whether it's goddamn, we're gonna civilize you or we're gonna teach you how to, you know what I'm saying, wipe your ass. They're gonna figure out a way to colonize you or enslave you and take something from you. And that's just the reality of the world we live in, because white supremacy is global.
And after that, on that, that sounds like it was what we calling this, the conscious shop?
Shit, we call it the Palestine chop. We need to put Palestine in. Palestine chop. You feel me? We need to we need to say their name, goddamn it. That's what I feel like. We need to say their name. You know what I'm saying?
Palestine chop. That's the Palestine chop.
Chop. Now we popping out to the last chop of the night. Plug. Take it away.
All right. So we're gonna keep the political conversation going. We're gonna get into this political chop tonight. For the political chop tonight, I want to do a vibe check. Y'all know how we do with the vibe checks. We go ahead, break down the story, and we catch the vibe. What vibe are we feeling? And there's some interesting ones going on. We have some congressional creeps, as I like to call them. And in today's political vibe check, we talking about Matt Gaetz. Now, for those who don't know, Matt Gaetz, before we get into, you know what I'm saying, what he is more so known for, what's going on with him today, his background is he comes from a well-to-do family in Florida. That well-to-do relationship established him as a candidate for Congress. He won that seat, and he sits as a congressman today. During the Trump administration, he developed his name as being one of his biggest sycophants, one of his biggest cheerleaders. Anything Donald Trump did, Matt Gaetz was the loudest person kissing ass.
Par excellence.
Now, I do want to point out before he got caught up in this, everybody know, I mean, if you don't know about the Hunter Biden situation, Joe Biden's son, you know what I'm saying, he do drugs.
Damn. Shout out to everybody.
He did drugs. Everybody dealing with that. You feel me?
Everybody
we don't judge around here.
You feel me? But definitely though, I got a lot of family members and people that I know.
We all do.
So we ain't trying to make drug abuse.
Exactly.
The tone though was a little, you know, but yeah, want to make sure we throw that out there.
Well, because like Republicans are very flippant about it. Like they love to point that out. They love to point out that Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, had a public battle with drug addiction. Matt Gaetz at one point wanted to point that out during a congressional hearing, and another congressman made it be known that, bro, you can't be talking about what somebody else is struggling with when you got DUIs publicly.
Come on.
Publicly. How you running your mouth about what he got going on and you dealing with DUIs, Mr. Congressman? You know what I'm saying? So that's the type of person Matt Gaetz was. But as of recent, Matt Gaetz, the company that he has kept has caught up to him. Right? A tax representative by the name of Joel Greenberg. He was a tax collector in Central Florida, Seminole County. He resigned last year after he was indicted with 33 federal charges.
33?
Now we know 33 federal charges. We're not. It wasn't even just pimping, right?
No, so like it's pimping 33, like 33, the number 33. Like pimping.
Look, pimping.
Number.
Look, he was pimping. You know what I'm saying? 33 federal charges. A lot of it had to do with sex trafficking, minors specifically, ID theft, stalking and fraud, etc. Now, one of the more blatant examples of Greenberg getting it in, just like really just using his position to do whatever the fuck he wanted to do, was that when they raided his office, they found suitcases and bags like full of fake IDs.
Right.
They were using information that they were. Joe Greenberg was using the information
at DMV doing fake IDs.
Like Joe Greenberg was using the information that he was collecting as a tax collector to make fake IDs to allow for the transportation of people, of minors, for sexual acts. Okay, that's allegedly, right? because we in a podcast game, so you got to say allegedly.
Libel, slander, goddamn, nothing like that. We broke.
Right, exactly. Now Joel Greenberg is tight with Matt Gaetz.
Yeah,
and there is a paper trail of Joel Greenberg, Matt Gaetz, and a 17-year-old woman.
Yeah.
All right, paper trail. Okay. Joel Greenberg then spilt the beans, talked about him and Matt doing all type of wild shit. Right. When this story dropped, when y'all heard this, what was the vibe? Like, what is the vibe? What are we talking about? Especially the Matt Gaetz, Donald Trump sycophant, the Republican, I'm a stand up for conservatism ass. You know what I'm saying? What's the vibe on this story? What's the check? Like, let me know how y'all feel.
I was like, yes. Because you can't get Donald Trump and you can't get none of his enthusiasts and supporters. And so finally to see somebody being pegged down for the dirty, trifling pervert that are connected to a line of other dirty, trifling perverts, I was excited. I am excited. The more people around him who are testifying or who are pleading guilty and stuff like that, my heart just gets full because, you know, they like Pokemon. You got to catch them all, but you don't. You can't catch them all, and so you get the ones that you can. And I hope to see him suffer through the penal system for the ways that he violated these young women that did not deserve that. So I'm excited.
Man, I'm going with the conservative contradictions. As a matter of fact, I'm putting my phone right now for an idea for a TikTok tomorrow. In my mind, it's like, hey, when my straight ass want to be an advocate and be an accomplice and ally for the LGBT community, you know what they weaponize against me, the parent? Consciously, what about the kids? They're being pedophiles. What about you're supporting pedophilia? Y'all be so because how y'all weaponize pedophilia against this entire community, y'all should be the biggest advocates against pedophilia in every instance. Because I ain't seeing y'all talk about Matt, y'all full of shit.
Not once.
That's what Danielle said in the comments. I'm not surprised they always got some undercover shit going on. Y'all realize, if I'm not mistaken, To Catch a Predator, y'all remember that show?
Yeah.
The whole reason it came off air is because homie was finding politicians was about to air him out and really kind of be on some whole super big expose shit, and they got him on out of there. It was like the show got to end because you're catching too many people who got too much at stake or have too high of a profile in society. And so, you know what I'm saying? You start shaking some shit loose, and that's also because it's a trail. Follow the trail. Continue to shake these trees and figure out who else is going to roll over, because people won't want to start saving their ass the closer you get to the fire. And more names and more, who knows what bombshells is about to come from it. So yes, let's start flipping some stones and seeing some more.
Yeah, Matt Gaetz is just one. To be clear, Matt Gaetz is just one person name that they got caught up, but it's supposed to be multiple. I mean, and like they said,
it's supposed to be multiple, and because it's supposed to be multiple, like, hey, y'all talk all that shit about pedophilia until y'all met with real ass pedophiles, and then y'all dwindle. Y'all got that none of that,
bro. Hey, say it again, bro, because that's the first thing. Like when people try to make the logical argument against like queerness is that it's the pedophilia argument.
It's the pedophilia,
and it's like bro, it's straight pedophiles like a motherfucker. Like,
you know what? Hey, can the comment section fact check me on this? I wanna jump out the window and make the claim that if we gonna do it statistically, I feel like pedophilia is more represented in heterosexual people than it is non-heterosexual people.
Yeah.
Can we get the stats on this? I feel like I'll be willing to even put some money on it. Like, I'm willing to bet some money that when it comes
research
to
over me search
on pedophilia, I'm willing to say that straight people are more likely to be pedophile is what the stats show than people in the LGBT community.
Hold on, and look, and Chris read my mind. He said, guarantee this shit loops back to Epstein, right?
Chris stole it.
Listen, that's what I was just about to say. Ain't it crazy how you got people like Donald Trump who dealt with like all type of accusations? He talking about grabbing by the genitalia. Like, we know, like, he brags about his creep nature. You feel me? Like his rapey nature. He brags about it. You got him known as a known
Epstein homeboy,
a known Epstein partner,
homie,
a known Epstein partner. And then now you got Matt Gaetz, again a Trump sycophant, because what they ended up finding out is that Joel Greenberg and Matt Gaetz hit up Roger Stone, who was supposed to be Donald Trump's conservative fixer, about pardons for some shit that they hadn't been accused of yet. There was a letter
without telling me you're guilty. Yeah, I
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it was a whole letter that went out to Donald Trump, and now Trump is kind of insulating himself by saying, all right, it didn't get to me. Like, so there's some plausible deniability there. You know what I mean? The request was made, but the conversation wasn't had with Donald Trump. But that just kind of goes to, like, when you look at all them pardons that went out towards the end of his term.
Yeah.
Like, look at the people that's in his circle that he's, you know what I'm saying, giving get out of jail free cards. It's right.
Everybody, they got something that can blow the top of him being, you know what I'm saying, him being involved in the station you want to be. I got so many thoughts on this one right here. I'm gonna let it go.
It's like now the last one we're gonna get into is, y'all kind of touched on this when I wasn't here. The Tim Scott and Kamala Harris situation, but I definitely want to be a part of that conversation. Y'all not gonna leave me out of that one.
Sure.
But leaving Tim Scott out, knowing that me and George had the whole debate about Kamala Harris, she's been the topic of a lot of conversation in terms, like, pre-election, about like what it would mean for her to occupy the space that she holds, standing behind Black women specifically in these, you know, situations. What's the vibe with Kamala today? Post-election, I want to start with you, Toya. What's the vibe? And I want your full honesty. Knowing the conversation y'all had about her comments about racism in America, you know what I'm saying? Knowing the hype that's being made about her being a Black woman occupying the space of the vice presidency, first one to ever do it. What's the vibe with Kamala Harris?
I think that she has been painfully silent in ways that are not appealing. Some of my favorite criticisms of her is the pictures are really the whole administration. How many pictures are taking them walking from one meeting to the next, walking from one place to the White House to the next. But if you notice, we've not heard a lot about or from Kamala Harris. She has not specifically addressed the American public in terms of her ideals and desires and plans that she has. She's been a part of various outings or meetings or whatever. And I actually read an article that was very interesting today because it talks about the strategery of her positioning right now. Kamala Harris is being, and it's all political, right? It's all a part of the political theater that we all love and have our front row tickets to. And here's how it's playing out. She is being existent and very present in photo ops and things like that, and conversations and discussions with the president, but she's very intentionally not having mic shoved in her face. And that's because they're trying to walk a tightrope of not making it clear that they are wanting to shop her around to be president of, for 2024, to run for that candidacy. They don't want her to seem too apt to be running or vying for that role. So they're not having her make a whole lot of big statements. They're not having her appear to be overly presidential because they don't want her to perceptually seem like she's undermining anything Joe Biden has going on. When it comes to racial conversations or whatever, they don't want to make him seem like he is not racially apt or culturally capable of dealing with that he's inept in that regard. So they can't really rely on her or have her make too many statements out there. It makes him seem like the white man that really did ride the coattails of the Black woman. She can't really overwhelmingly talk about her own agenda or her own plans because shit is still thick, and they want to have sensitivities to dealing with things like the pandemic and the pandemic response and make it. So it's just all of these political
break it down.
Because she's like the most silent present, like the most elephant in the room, person that exists. And in a world where it is uncommon in this day and age to have a presidential candidate to almost for sure be noted as not running for a second term, they're having to treat her presence in the administration and as vice president very interestingly and delicately to posture and present all the right things with the Democratic Party and with her potential run in all the perfect ways. So it really is interesting, but she is not impressed. She's not impressing me as a potential voter. I'm not moved, especially because of the interesting and delicate times that she slid in on the job. I need some more Kamala in order to trust you later, and I'm not getting that. So I'm skeptical.
And before you answer, George, I do want to point out that was actually a lot of the apprehension that because that's specifically hearing that's coming from the Biden team. That's the Biden team trying to not really step on his legacy, because that was the apprehension about having her as the vice president in the first place. It was like, we know what she wants, right? We know the place that she wants to be. So when they were creating that short list, there was some tension like within the Biden camp about whether like about her position on that short list. So it makes sense that ultimately then they would be taking a step back and saying, you know, all right, well, we don't want her to be the racial mouthpiece, right? But and before I get to George, what needs to be clear though is that that's the only way y'all gonna clear this shit up.
Yeah.
Like actually what like this attempt is of course the liberal mindset of, you know what I'm saying, of whiteness, in the sense that it's like, nah, bro, the one thing that he needs to learn to capitulate. I'm an old white man talking about things that, you know what I'm saying, I've been on the wrong side on in the past.
Right.
I brought her here to play that role. I think that's something that we would embrace more so than anything if it was just respectfully like, yo, in terms of being a subject matter expert, shit, like that I need this insight. And what they pretty much saying by relegating her to that role is that they're not even allowing her to provide that experience, provide that insight in a way that would make her useful to Joe Biden.
But plug, this is why, and this is where, you know, me and you might have some tension, because this is why B at least so heavily problematized these representational politics and what they do and where they get us, because you essentially have these people who are able to, when it's time to talk about the Indian impact on the coronavirus and how now we have this Indian vice president, let's tap into and see what the United, and now that becomes a storyline or a political line or a net that we're supposed to cast out into the world because of those appendages. Then we have the black woman. It's just, it all becomes so silly, and she does nothing. She's not responsive. None of those things matter. They want the white man to seem autonomous and powerful and capable, and so they're not even used as black women with the proficiencies and the abilities that she has. She's just somebody who represents some cute shit, and I'm over it.
Black woman, seen but not heard.
No, but but see, that's actually where we agree, though. That's my point, because she should be like, in terms of like, the reality needs to be like, we need this insight. We need this perspective. It has to be injected into the conversation, because ultimately what we as irresponsible white people need to recognize is we can't do it.
But also
we gotta I mean that this the job.
But it's the other part about her job though. And here's why I don't want her insights, and I think we do disagree. We actually don't agree on one of her insights.
Okay, you're making it clear.
Yeah. Talking about what she said in response or in agreement with damn Tim Scott.
Oh, right.
When she start talking, she say silly shit like racism in America don't exist. So I don't want her at all. I've been fooled. I've been hoodwinked. I've been duped. And I'm changed.
Okay.
To be honest with you, Damo, that was most of our conversation. I ain't gonna lie to you. We was just talking shit like Damo don't recognize this is our argument right here. The shit that Kamala said and her ability to say it as she said it. This is why we have this is why we always have the Afro pessimist versus political pragmatism debates.
Yeah.
It's basically what it come down to. It's basically what we getting at. It's just like, bro, she said that racism. America doesn't have a racist history, but it needs to. America is not racist, but it has to face the truth of its racist history. Divine 9, Howard graduate from Oakland, California.
Used to smoke weed, hot sauce in my bag, swag.
Hot sauce, smoke weed with Snoop.
Yeah,
come on, man.
Okay. Shout out to Jim B, who just slid in from New Zealand. Shout out to you.
Shout out to New Zealand, man.
Definitely. Kevin, we know y'all breaking out. Y'all starting to fragment off, so we love y'all for tuning in. Like it, share it, love it. Do all those things before you dip out so people can catch on to this and what y'all watch tonight. But this is the same person who said, how? Explain it, Damo.
Okay, because like, all right, because look, we ain't gonna, you know what I'm saying? We ain't gonna make it too long. But what needs to be understood is that I think what's happening is that was another case of the Biden team failing the Biden administration. I don't think that's something that I think that like Kamala saying that is her like going along with the moderate liberal narrative for the team.
Yeah.
You feel me? And so I think that if her insight was actually more a part of the conversation, the problem is it would be more critical of a lot of what Biden represents and what the Biden team wants his legacy to be. Unfortunately, that doesn't have anything to do with reconciling, this is what I thought was going to be important. And I may have been wrong in this instance, but I did feel that in order for his administration to be meaningful in any way, shape, form, or fashion, especially coming off of Donald Trump, you know what I'm saying? It had to reconcile with both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's past in terms of race and what it is that they have been like responsible for criminal like specifically when it got to do with criminal justice.
Find the strategery.
No, I would not. I would admit that
the Biden camp, behind anybody associated with them being like, United States is not racist. Like, what do you lose? What do you lose? Racist nation.
What you lose is you lose footing in the red versus blue battle, because calling America racist then puts them in the position of where now conservatives can say, "Oh, they're not American."
But who can
They're
take
criticizing
you serious?
America.
Who can take you serious in the same breath or in a new conversation or in the past conversation? You talk about police brutality like it's supposed to be a real thing to you. Who can take you serious when you pass and shit on behalf of Asian American?
What the crime deal?
Who can take you serious if every other you kneeling and wearing our kente cloths and shit, but nothing's racist? Then why are you doing that? If there was no reason to redress, then why the fuck do you? Why in the hell? My mom was gonna stop using heavy F words. Why in the world are you putting our black stoles on?
Shout out
Why
to
are
Kara.
you making gestures for the Asian community? Why do you have Asian American and Pacific Islander History Month and Black? What is the point? If methods to redress are not to acknowledge a reality, then what is the point of any of it?
Respectability politics, but it sounds like to me, you don't want to alienate the 49%. 50% of white people that didn't vote for you because you wanted, to me, it's like you didn't want to alienate them. It's obvious you did not want to alienate half of America. So
listen,
you said I think the other half of America that knows America is racist. Y'all know I gotta play the game on this one.
Yeah,
that's how I seen it. It's like, because think about it, half of America know America racist. The other half of America think that America can never be racist. So once it's like it's 50% either way. She chose,
or they justify 50%. America's racism.
Exactly. So to me, it's just like, fam, like, come on now. You literally characterize yourself as the progressive prosecutor because you recognizing how steeped in racism the position of being a prosecutor is.
But
so
it's not right. With a straight face. With a straight face.
Like, hold on. Okay.
But see, it's like, no, but here's the thing, because we listen, hear me out. Here's what
I'm listening.
What's disrespectful about it.
I'm listening.
You play in my face. Then you get the state is the state, the government is the government. They did a lot of pre-election work trying to rebuild at least temporary trust in a system we know to work exactly how we do. And then, like clockwork, you have this election. All this nonsense happens. You have this black lady up here posturing. You have all this bullshit happening. You have police murder still continue. All this shit. And then, just like a Boondocks episode, how often do we say this? You get two niggas to stand up on camera and stand next to each other and say, "Yeah, it's not as bad as y'all thinking." Like, where am I? What am I doing? I think
so. Okay.
See, the righteous indignation, the gall, the unmitigated gall you had.
Okay, look.
I'm gonna step back. I'm gonna get off a plug. Do your thing, bro.
Look, okay. Let me say this. Right. Let me say this. What I see happening is I see Kamala capitulating to the Biden team, right? And this could speak to don't worry.
We do too. We say it's bad.
Yeah.
Like, well, hold on. I agree.
Like, we do too. We saying it's bad. We saying the capitulating, the pontificating is bad. We saying it's bad.
But that's what. But ultimately, what's happening though is that if we go back to what we started talking about in the first place, right? And that is how we feel about Kamala and her insight being injected into the conversation. Initially, how her insight was framed was as like America isn't racist, right? That was how. But now we understand. We are agreeing that, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, is that that's really more of a Biden administration thing. Not really.
Kamala is the vice president of Biden's administration.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how you completely
like
separate.
Stephanie. Like Kamala usually talk with so much unapologetic.
Because I think this is the same team that thought you're not black if you vote for Donald Trump comment, right? Like I think ultimately the Kamala that we saw going after Joe Biden for his racist
not the Kamala we have now.
But that would be
Toy, would you agree, Toya?
Nigga, I didn't see her. That's who I was excited about. Like, if anything, if we're gonna get some of that, then okay, cool.
Man, like we got a dog. We got a dog, and now our dog then got real goddamn what?
It ain't the dog. It ain't the dog you thought.
You got a guinea pig on us in the rack wheel. It's like, hey y'all, take a picture. I'm inspiring young black girls to be like me. It's just like
that's what I hate the most. Is I think the thing that bothers me the most about Kamala Harris being vice president is the same labor that we have to do as conscious black people when we run behind Barack Obama's legacy. That shit just can't be. We can't just let it sit out there. It's too risky for future generations for us to be like, oh, Kamala Harris. We got to be like, Kamala Harris. Now let's talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the same thing with damn Barack Obama. And that is annoying. It's frustrating. It's exhausting. And for it to just be happening so textbook, so predictably.
Yeah, man. Like, damn.
I'm just waiting. And a lot of people, and I also think about the exit conversation. When we look back, whether or not she becomes vice president or not later on, right? When we look back at her vice president and see and evaluate it on its significance, guess what her scapegoat's gonna be? Well, she was a vice president. You ain't do nothing when you were vice president. So she's gonna get away with all of this bullshit because we steeped and stoked a lot into what she had, and that's because the administration put a steeped and stoked a lot into what she was gonna be able to do with her influence on this presidency. Now we see that that's not the case. Joe Biden is business as usual, and now she's gonna get to leave this particular this administration and this moment of vice presidency having the gold stars around.
Hey, and remember, Mike Pence was able to walk up out of. Remember, Mike Pence walked up out of Hamilton because they said something. Remember the Hamilton Broadway shit? They said something he didn't like. He got his ass out there and walked. I don't see Kamala doing anything like that because it's like you're trying to play safe because you want to aspire to a higher position. And going back to when we was debating, it's like at the expense of who?
I mean, and look, I will say this. On the level of a vice president, I think she got a tough act to follow because Joe Pence wasn't no hoe. Joe Pence was really mixed.
Mike Pence.
Lord Jesus. Mike Pence Mike Pence at the very end did some things we need to see. Him and Donald Trump don't have a good relationship right now because he's seen as somebody who stood up to Donald Trump and called wrong when the time was. I don't think Kamala Harris gonna have that same legacy. I don't think we're gonna be able to look at various moments. Mike Pence stood up and I think walked out of football games when they wasn't doing the protest shit right there, bro. When they was kneeling, he was outspoken. He was verbose about a lot of things, and I just don't see her following that act.
Well, Makai Brown ain't here. Is to me and too. I just think of because this Palestine shit been on my head so crazy. I think of the public debates they had when there was 10 of them, when there was 20 of them. Kamala got asked deliberate, straightforward questions about Palestine. She didn't want to say nothing about it. You know what I'm saying? Because and the seeing this is like there's a lot of things that when you have that position, your mere words and the symbolism that you push forward, it has a lot of impact. And it's just like you don't want to. You're playing safe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. Right. I'm disappointed a bit. Right. I'm not gonna act like that. My expectations weren't a reach. Right. But because we were dealing with Donald Trump, I can get him the fuck up out of there. I think that reaching like that was appropriate. Now, Donald Trump is no longer.
Terrell got a point right here. Terrell, you're right. I have to take it into account. I should take that into account.
But hold on, but see, that's what I was going to speak to because again, even though we can have our criticism of Kamala, we can't compare what Kamala is able to do to an white man. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though we have our criticism, that's not the logical litmus test that we could use to be like, well, she didn't do what Mike Pence did. Okay, now I do want to say this.
Obama didn't do what Donald Trump did either, huh?
Yeah.
Trayvon was my son. If I had a son, he would look like Trayvon.
Right. Donald Trump said that America was built by black people. Motherfucker. Yeah. All right, so like, you know what I'm saying? And so like let's be let's be logical here. But what I will say is that Kamala Harris does not get reelected as president if she doesn't deal with this. Niggas ain't after we got past the Obama romanticization and we said like, nah, being there ain't enough. I think there was enough tension and backlash amongst specifically Black people about, I mean, even to this day, about Kamala being where she is and what that means and everything else, that you're not gonna make it through 4 years of this and niggas be like, we'll see what she can do as president. Yeah. It's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. And before we end this conversation out, I will be conscious of the optics and her being a Black woman, and I believe how we all conditioned to hold Black women to a different thing. I even account for that. I still
not even a different thing, but
insulated from criticism though. That's why I would say it's like I would even account for that of how we put different standards and shit on Black women, and her being a Black woman that she, you know what I'm saying, might be doing that, but I still think there's criticisms here that don't go away,
or even because we got to be careful, because like in ways like people valorize Donald Trump and Mike Pence to be like they did this when Obama didn't, and they did this when Obama didn't, and it's like white privilege is not something to be applauded. Like, you know what I'm saying? They did what they did out of their white entitlement. Like it's niggas, you know what I'm saying? We gotta fight a little bit harder than that. So y'all got any last thoughts?
Last thoughts. Two things. One, I'm very interested to see what, if anything, Kamala Harris does as we transition out of COVID, as we transition out of kind of the economic state and place that we're in, that really forces the rubber to meet the road. I'm very intimately invested, as much as I don't care anything about the Democratic Party, but we're looking at and paying attention to specifically how she develops herself as not just a Democratic candidate, but the front-running Democratic candidate. Because what we saw with Democrats is, you know, one, they have to fight against Donald Trump and Trumpism. And so we saw last election cycle that they're not scared to bring 25, 30 damn people up to the mic to say, I want to be president of the United States. They have a terrible process of narrowing down who they expect his competition to be. And so I'm real interested to see how Kamala Harris comes out as the front running, like just kind of clear, identifiable Democratic candidate. Because even if she does do good enough to have some type of presidential run, I don't know if she's going to make a big enough splash to run against and oppose some other people who might try to make a run at that particular seat or position.
Yeah. Second thing, especially a more liberal white person.
Exactly. Right. I don't think she got the goods, because the whiteness, you know what I'm saying, the complexion for protection when it comes to people making tough decisions. Second thing is, we still, before we can get caught up in what she gonna do, we still got to have a realistic conversation about the likelihood of Trumpism roaring back.
Yes. Can we say it went anywhere?
At all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Trump 2024, all my timeline.
And look back into what it's going to take for the Democratic Party to kind of rise above what the resurgence of Trump is going to be. I think we got to have an even bigger conversation that transcends Kamala and just talks about what the strategies, tips, and techniques is that the Democrats are using to even being a viable conversation to have. And I won't even push it down to 2024, baby. I'm talking about 2022 in these damn midterms, because the shit was ugly. So I don't know. I don't got the faith. I don't think she is the great Black woman hope of the Democratic Party. I don't think she's going to deliver them from anything better or different than where we are right now. And I don't think that she's going to be able to make a whole lot of noise. But as another Black woman, I ain't trying to count it completely out. I'm not impressed by what I'm saying.
Hey, shout out to Marquise. Definitely. I see. Hey, I'm about to say we ended it now, so I don't want to answer. I know I get along with it and start. We'll be going for 30 more minutes type shit. So definitely shout out to you, Marquise, acknowledging. You know what I'm saying?
Alex has a poignant statement to close the conversation out, and this will be something that I allow for y'all to think about on the way out. Alex says,
put it on the Summer Jam screen.
Says Kamala Harris. Put it back. Kamala Harris is for the Black community. What Caitlyn Jenner is for the trans community. That's a spicy comment that we go. I think that's a great place to put a pin in it as we come back to the Kamala saga. The saga continues. Let's see.
Yeah, man. So yeah, we'll go ahead and close out that political talk, man.
Hey, Ninja Tyler Black said, but she keeps her chucks fresh.
Yeah. Shout out to my nigga T Bird. He know what's up, man. Hey, but yeah, great episode. The starting 5 is back, even though it's 3 of us. We got the starters back.
Hey, the big 3, you know what I'm saying?
We back in it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Make sure if you was on the Consciously page, if y'all came from TikTok or Instagram, make sure y'all go and subscribe to the Chop Up Show. The funny thing about the Chop Up Show subscribers, I'm gonna put y'all up on game. Oddly enough, when you look at the Chop Up Show subscribers and you look at Consciously subscribers, like we represent like our subscription ship, if that's a word. Please don't call me out on that. It is literally 10% of his. So like right now, Consciously is sitting at around 12,700. The Chop Up is sitting literally at 1,207. like literally. So y'all,
it's like somebody playing with the numbers.
You know what I'm saying? Literally. So like, hey, if y'all came from if y'all came from Consciously's TikTok, make sure y'all go subscribe to the Chop Up Show so we can grow the channel, make the channel bigger, and keep bringing y'all like this great content. Y'all can find me at The Political Plug on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram. Toya.
Hey, Toya G, TOYUHGEE. Holler at me wherever you can find me. I'll be sure to connect with you.
Yeah. GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com, man. GeorgeLeeSpeaks.com got the merch coming, you know what I'm saying, on there for you already. And too, man, to everybody on YouTube, this summertime, Consciously about to be on YouTube so crazy. So for all you hating ass
ain't watching nobody kid
on YouTube, y'all finna come get some, goddamn. Come get some.
Yeah.
Straight up. Hey. Well, y'all be on the lookout for some big things. Nico, we need to rap. Nico know what we need to talk about, but we got more guests coming. We got better shit coming, but y'all know we're going to close it out the same way we always start the show. We out.
Me, my guys, we really live. Lord, forgive me, pay my tithes. Please don't have me reach inside. And that's in the console. Keep the semi when I